the Best Damn Podcast. I am your host, John Keene. As always, I would like to thank you guys for joining me. Tonight we've got a pretty interesting one here. We're going to be looking at quite a few things. We're going to be looking at Comet 3I Atlas. This comet is basically it's been in the news recently. One of the rare interstellar objects that is visiting the neighborhood. It is supposed to be passing at its closest point on Christmas this year, December 25th of 2025. And this is a strange one, man. You guys are going to see as we look at the images and the videos. This is a strange one. Some people are describing this as a red comet, and it's getting different descriptions. Some people are claiming that it's an alien interstellar object. It's kind of been out there for a while, but we're gonna, kind of break it down and, take a look at, what we can think it is and kind of compare it to some of the biblical scriptures as well and see if maybe, this could be some key indicator of something bigger that's taking place. Also, we're going to be taking a look at the recent No Kings protest, some of the things that the Trump administration has been saying about that. And there's been some recent comments from Bannon as well, about Trump running in 2028, the suspension of habeas corpus. In my opinion, I think that there's a lot bigger things that are cooking, with the National Guard and all the federal agents that are being dispatched to all the major population areas. So, we're going to take a look at that as well, and look at some of the comments from the POTUS, as well as look at, some conspiracies surrounding martial law and the collapse of the United States government, and kind of maybe look at where this could possibly be leading all of us as well. We're going to be looking at biblical prophecies pertaining to Trump, the end times. It should be a pretty interesting one. So I want to ask all of you guys to please follow me: Instagram, Facebook, Best Damn Podcast, Twitter, The Real Best Damn. I don't think I'll ever be able to call it X. I don't know why. I'm just old. If you'd like to donate and support, keep in mind we're viewer powered. You can do that by going to PayPal, Cash App, Facebook Messenger, or joining us over on Patreon. All the links are in the description and pinned at the top of the comment section. Sorry that I started this one so late. I just had a lot going on, so I just kind of got a late start on this one. But let's go ahead and jump into this. We're going to start with Comet 3I Atlas. And like I said, this is intriguing, this comet in particular. And if I got an echo in here, it's because this room, I don't know why this room in particular has that. But so Comet 3I Atlas, also designated as C 2025 N1 Atlas. It is the third confirmed interstellar object following 11 Oumuamua in 2017. You guys may remember Oumuamua and Borisov in 2019. Unlike bound comets that orbit the sun in elliptical paths, 3I Atlas follows a hyperbolic trajectory, indicating that it originated from another star system and that it will exit our solar system after a brief visit. It poses no threat to Earth and is classified as an active comet due to its icy nucleus surrounding Coma, a cloud of gas and dust, and visible tail. And with the hyperbolic the hyperbolic orbit and the hyperbolic path that it follows, it coming from another system, I think is what makes this one incredibly interesting, right? We've gotten into, in the last live, we got into just a little bit on the Colburn Bible, right, which was written on brass. It was allegedly pre-Diluvian, right? And this was basically the Egyptian version of Exodus, right? And the parting of the Red Sea and, Pharaoh and all of it, right? It's an amazing read. I've gotten into it quite a few times over the years. But in that particular text, there is, and some people describe it as, a pseudographical text, meaning by pseudographical text, meaning like it's apocryphal. which it does have some of those texts included, but it does have at the very end of that book, in some versions, not all, 3 chapters on the destroyer, right? And the destroyer is this large comet, or comet-like planet or star, this object, this big giant red object, with a fiery tail. And it comes in at the end of the age, right? And every time the ages end, this thing comes in and it creates chaos, destruction, war, and the earth it wreaks havoc on the earth and on humankind, and this marks the end of the age, right? And it kind of resets everything, wreaking havoc and destruction, and everything's kind of made new after. And this is also fits many descriptions, like of the Lord and the day of the Lord with the fire and pillars of smoke. So we're going to actually look tonight at those chapters in the Kolbrin on the destroyer, after we kind of look at Comet 3I Atlas. So this object has sparked significant scientific interest and some public speculation due to its unusual composition and behavior, providing a rare window into extrasolar chemistry and dynamics. And then we have a summary here. It was discovered on the date of July 1st, 2025 by the NASA-funded Asteroid Terrestrial Impact Last Alert System, and that's what ATLAS actually stands for, Asteroid Terrestrial Impact Last Alert System. So, you guys may remember the movie Greenland, right? And I forget it, what the name was, Clark. I think it was called Clark in that movie. And some in the depiction, they basically, it was like an Atlas type system that they had there. It was like the last alert system, right? And this comet basically comes through. They don't think that it's going to pose a threat to the Earth. You can see it during broad daylight, just like this one. And then lo and behold, it actually, deviates on its course. And next thing you know, there's fighter jets flying over and shit hits the fan, right? And they have this national lottery to see who gets to go to Greenland, which, think about recently, Trump and Vance and their play on Greenland and all of this, right? To see, and they have an underground bunker there basically to, start over for humanity, because this thing wreaks havoc and destruction. So, and it's a really interesting movie if you've ever seen it. So, confirmation on July 2nd, 2025, observations from telescopes, including the Deep Random Survey in Chile and the Lowell Discovery Telescope in Arizona, and Canada-France-Hawaii Telescope in Mauna Kea, revealed a marginal coma and tail-like elongation, confirming cometary activity. The Minor Planet Center assigned 3I designation on the same day. Now, the origin direction approaching from the constellation Sagittarius. Now, this is very, which I didn't put this in my notes, and I should have, but I do know that there is something scriptural, even biblical, that talks about, Sagittarius, basically coming from the direction of Sagittarius. So, likely from the Milky Way's outer regions or early galactic frontier, based on backward trajectory modeling. The orbital parameters is the eccentricity. And if you are in the chat, like if you're in the chat for this and you see this, or you see this after the fact in the comment section or whatever, and you know which verse I'm talking about for the Sagittarius thing, coming from the direction of Sagittarius, please put that in there. If not, I'll make sure to bring it up in the next one. But the orbital parameters, the eccentricity is 6.1 hyperbolic, confirming its interstellar origins. The excess velocity is 209,000 kilometers an hour relative to the sun, the fastest recorded for an interstellar visitor. So this thing is fucking flying, right? It's smoking. The closest to the sun will be October 30th, so the day before Halloween, and that is at 1.4 AU, aeronautical miles, and this is 130 million miles basically. Now, the closest to the Earth is December 19th, so I stand corrected, at 2025, and this is 1.8 AU, or 170 million miles. Far too distant for visibility or impact risk, and the entry timeline crossed Neptune's orbit in mid-2023, Jupiter's in early 2025, July 2025, and will pass Jupiter outbound in early 2026, then escape into interstellar space, continuing a journey likely spanning billions of years. The current status in the solar conjunction behind the sun from Earth view, making ground-based observations impossible until late November. It will reappear for post-perihelion study in December. So, and this is another thing that kind of makes it interesting, how it's coming up from behind the sun here. This kind of like goes into, different prophecies and all types of shit about, what many people would describe as like Planet X, Nibiru, wormwood, things like that, right? Coming from behind the sun. Basically, it's like, when objects come from behind the sun, it's like you can't see them until they're right up on us, right? And that's kind of like what brings a lot of the destruction and a lot of these, end time comet scenarios and shit. So it's because, it can't be stopped or it can't be seen until it's already too late, right? Until it's right up on us, basically. And I'm not saying that this is going to happen with this. Obviously, it says it's at an extremely safe distance, but I mean, you never know, right? Like I said, in the movie Greenland, the thing is not supposed to hit either, and then all of a sudden something throws it off on its trajectory, or, because you got to think, like, the sun has magnetic force, the earth has magnetic force, there are other objects that could be interacting with this thing. There's a million different ways, right, that this shit could, go in a different way than what we think. Especially with this one in particular, because it's been slowing and speeding up, right? So its speed and trajectory and everything has not been a constant, right? So that's what's kind of made this one unique. So, and once again too, and I have a orbital diagram, which I'll show you the images in just a moment as we go through this. It's actually going to cross like within our solar system, and that same sweet spot between Jupiter and Mars, right? Which we know that because of the asteroid belt, that many people, like the Norse and shit, they would call it the hammered bracelet, and the Sumerian text described the destruction of Tiamat, right, which used to be a planet, which probably is what Earth is a piece of, or the remainder of planet Tiamat. We know that our moon actually came from all of that trajectory, Kingu, right, which became the moon in the orbit of the Earth, and also was the deity that they used to make the souls of all human beings in that mythos as well. Kingu was a sacrifice Kingu and used his essence to make all of the human beings. The Anunnaki did. And we know that, in which many people believe Zecharia Sitchin's work is not legitimate, and some people think it is, but for those who think it is, he described this tale of Nibiru, right? Which what he did was, anybody who kind of like studies any of these texts, he basically combined like the Mesopotamian, Sumerian, and Akkadian cultures, right? Like their text and cultures, basically combined it all, because some of the words were used by the, later with the Akkadians. Some of them were used earlier with the Mesopotamians, right? So, and if we look at like Enuma Elish, which is creation mythos of the Babylonians, Nibiru was Jupiter, right? It was the planet Jupiter. And Marduk was the planet Jupiter. So there was many references to Jupiter. So this thing coming from the direction of Jupiter, and then there being this kind of like prior history of a large celestial object, having a collision with a body that was between, Mars and Jupiter, creating the asteroid belt. And this is going right up the gut, like right where this, has happened in the past. That's always what makes me think it's interesting. And then with the mythos of Nibiru, it's basically just like the destroyer, which you'll see in the Kolbrin. This is an interstellar object. It's from a rogue star, right, from another system, just like kind of interstellar, right? And it comes through every so often. Some people believe it's 3,600 years. Some people believe it's 36,000 years. We have different people and what they believe a shar was, right? According to, the Sumerians, but once every shar, which was a year, a revolution on the planet Nibiru. And, this was a red-like object, dust all around it, wings, the whole nine, which would be like a red cometary object, which wait till you see some of the images of this thing, right? So, and then, the significance of it coming closest at the solstice as well. I find this to be interesting because, the solstice, we know that especially, polytheistic religions, basically, all the pagan, religions, the winter solstice is huge, right? And that's December 21st. So we have this coming right on the solstice. This happens, correlates with these great conjunctions. I've mentioned this in the past too, how these great Saturn-Jupiter conjunctions, they take place every so often. And when they take place, these are usually when the giant catastrophic, cataclysmic events happen as well, right? So we had our great conjunction of this age, December 21st, 2020, right? So we had it just a few years ago, and it was a great Saturn-Jupiter conjunction. We had one similar, but it wasn't exact 400 years prior to that, which would have been the last kind of reset, which would have put us, I think 1650, 1700, somewhere in there, right? Which, if you guys look at the Book of Miracles, there's lots of documented celestial activity and changes around then. And then that's when a lot of the people that subscribe to the Tartarian mud floods and all of that believe that period actually happened with that conjunction. And that wasn't even an exact conjunction, right? But the last one before that was 800 years. So, we had even 800 years before that was the last great Saturn-Jupiter conjunction, so, which we just had that a few years ago. And then you guys will remember we had the great sign in heaven also, which was what many people believe in. I forget his name. Was it David Oates or something like that? He hasn't been in the news for a very long time, for a few years. But I think he's the one who basically brought it to the mainstream. But it was September 23rd, 2017, and it correlated to Revelations 12, which is the story of the woman and the dragon, the great sign in heaven. It hadn't happened. It's once in 7,000 years. Right? And it's the story of the woman giving birth to the child, the male child, who will rule the nations with an iron rod or an iron scepter. And it was a celestial alignment that took place September 23rd, 2017. And on that particular celestial alignment, it was the constellation of Virgo, which represented the woman or the virgin. Which, if you guys know about, the story with Jesus and all of that, Virgo also has, like Bethlehem, the house of bread, all of that is within the constellation of Virgo as well. Which, that's another, we'll save that for another day. But, and she was in conjunction with, she had the sun over her shoulders, the moon under her feet, and then was in alignment with the constellation of Leo, right, which Leo is the lion, and then Mars, Venus, and Mercury were in conjunction as well. That was the crown of 12 stars upon her head. And then she was given birth to a male child who will rule the nations with an iron rod or an iron scepter, which was Jupiter. And Jupiter was in her womb for 42 weeks, which is the approximate gestation of 9 months, the time it takes to have a child. And guess what? Jupiter is the king planet, right? So, you can take that for what you will. And then we had, just a few short years later, that 3 years later, the great conjunction of December 21st, 2020, followed by the precise 42 months later, which is time, and half a time, the 3.5 years to the day, which what is 1,260 days, I believe, was March 21st, 2021, which was the passing of the comet Apophis, right? And Apophis is the god of chaos and darkness. I showed you guys in the last video, all the Egyptian mythos with them on the boat with the red planet above their head and all of that, right? And then fighting off the alligator coming up from underneath the earth, all of that. Remember the separation of the waters above and below the firmament. Watch the last one and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But now we have this interesting, interstellar object, which, think about it, right around that time as well, we had Oumuamua, which came in, right? Which is an interstellar object that looked like it made a turn towards the earth. And then 42 months after that happened, you have to remember also was the beginning of the mandatory vaccines, right? So, looking at like the mark of the beast or the beast system, I tend to believe that this was, taking it to, the first horse of the apocalypse, right? Out conquering and to conquer, right? You had the Stephanos, which means to wreath or twine, which was representative of the UN, the World Health Organization, and it was a serpent on the scepter and all of that good stuff. And the entire world was subdued, right? We had 90% of every population, right? And this had to do with a sickness, right? And that was that strong delusion, that great deception that began, and now here we are, I believe, on the cusp of, the red horse coming out, the fiery red. Think about, and I've seen somebody, talking about this the other day, and I know they got this from me. It's like, if you're going to watch my stuff and repeat what I say, at least give me the credit for it, especially if you're a bigger channel. But the red hats, right? Remember, it's a fiery red horse to take peace from the earth, and just think about what's happening right now, right? The peace is being taken from the earth, definitely. You look at like the ICE raids, right? Israel and Gaza and just all of it, we could go deep down the rabbit hole with all of that. We know that Albert Pike, the grandfather of modern day Freemasonry, in his 1871 letter to Mazzini, he talked about the 3 world wars, and he outlined, this Masonic plan, which that's what we're seeing is Masonic theater at its finest, from the Charlie Kirk assassination to the shit that's taking place in Israel, to the raids that are happening, in all of the major cities, and the deployment of the National Guard and the federalization of the National Guard and the attempt to suspend habeas corpus once again. If you remember, Trump tried to suspend habeas corpus back in 2016, right? 2017, his first, time as president. And now he's going about this again, and we have Bannon coming out talking about how he's going to be running again in 2028. It's like, and I've mentioned all of the correlations with Trump and the Antichrist, right? He takes a fatal wound to the head and live, right? We've seen that bullshit assassination attempt where he got shot in the ear, and then think about his comparison, to King Cyrus, who was minted on the gold coin, who was the outsider, who became the king of Babylon. And then Babylon falls in his 4th year. And then remember, we had the Transition Integration Project of 2020, which was a government exercise. So Trump was just in on it, right? Which was the contested elections. And within that, they had 2 out of 3 scenarios in which Biden won over a contested election, right? Where they would say that there was some sort of, screw up or mix up and that it wasn't right. And that they was planning riots and all of this, and this was exercises, guys, by your very own government, called the Transition Integration Project of 2020. I've covered every single one of these things, everything I've listed over the years, up to this day. Anybody who's watched me knows that. And then we had 30,000 National Guard troops which were occupying the Capitol as there was the transition of power. And then we have the king who was not and is yet to come. And then think about Trump. He's 45, then he wasn't, then 47, right? 4 plus 5 is 9, 4 plus 7 is 11. He's the 9/11 president. If it's not obvious to you, and then MAGA, right? Which derives from magus, which means magician, right? And it's from the temple of Set, which is the temple of Satan. Right? The red hats, all of it. Like, people need to wake up to what's actually going on and what the characteristics of the Antichrist actually are, right? He's the one who perceived to have all the the solutions to the problems. He brings peace, right? To the Middle East and all of this. And then, he's not who he claims to be. It's a deception. He deceives even the Christians, right? And speaks proud words, the whole nine. And so back to comment 3i Atlas. The activity, it's highly active with a coma spanning a few thousand kilometers. So that's pretty long. It began outgassing as early as May 7th, 2025, about 6.4 AU from the sun, earlier than typical for solar system comets, suggesting a volatile, rich composition or complex internal structure. The brightness magnitude is 18 to 20, which is faint, requires large telescopes, not expected to brighten enough for naked eye or binocular visibility. Leaking water, that to a fire hydrant. Dust ejection. Tails and jets, it features a dust tail and an ion tail. 2 meters in the twin telescope, which I'm going to show you these telescope images in just a minute. Spectroscopic analysis reveals a mix of familiar and exotic chemistry, offering clues to its home system. The dominant components, it's rich in carbon dioxide, CO2, small amounts of water, ice, vapor, carbon monoxide, and carbon sulfide. The color, it's a reddish coma, so this is a red comet. Right, so, and it's rich in dust. And now and this is where we're gonna start, looking at the comparisons here. Now, let's go here. I'm gonna just kind of take a look at some of this. Now, these are like the hypothesis of Loeb here. So, Avi Loeb is the Israeli-American theoretical physicist and Frank B. Baird Professor of Science at Harvard. He served as the chair of Harvard's Department of Astronomy from 2011 to 2020 and is the founding director of the Black Hole Initiative and the Institute for Theory and Computation at Harvard's Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics. Loeb has authored nearly 1,000 scientific papers and 9 books, including bestsellers like Extraterrestrial, First Sign of Intelligent Life Beyond Earth, and Interstellar, The Search for Extraterrestrial Life and Our Future in the Stars. His work spans cosmology, astrophysics, and the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, often blending rigorous theory with bold, controversial hypothesis. Loeb advocates for open-minded scientific inquiry, criticizing what he sees as a crisis in science where unconventional ideas are dismissed prematurely. Loeb's theories frequently challenge mainstream views. So, Loeb's contributions cover foundational astrophysics, interstellar objects, and potential extraterrestrial technology. So Loeb pioneered the scientific study of interstellar visitors, arguing they offer a direct probe of other star systems. His most provocative idea suggests some may be artificial artifacts. Oumuamua was one of those, the possible alien light sail, the first confirmed interstellar object, and then we have 3I Atlas, which is potential alien probe or mothership for the third interstellar object observed July 2025. Loeb highlighted its 20-kilometer size, rarer than expected for natural interstellar bodies, hyperbolic trajectory with a 0.005% probability of aligning precisely with inner planets, forward glow, no trailing tail, and nickel-rich emissions without iron, resembling industrial alloys. He suggested it might be a Trojan horse probe, targeting our solar system, or even a mothership deploying smaller scouts with a 30 to 60% chance of non-natural origin. Loeb warned of risks and examples given, save us or destroy us, and urged data released from missions like NASA's Europa Clipper. Mainstream astronomers, ESA's Richard Mosil, countered that the observations show cometary features like water, ice, and CO2, dismissing artificial claims. So, let's see if we can pull up some of these actually. Yeah, here we go. This is the Take Vacations before October 29th. I just seen this the other day. Harvard astrophysicist warns that 3I Atlas sparks debate on possible artificial origin. So the Harvard astrophysicist has sparked widespread curiosity online by warning people to take vacations before October the 29th, suggesting that NASA may be withholding critical information about a mysterious interstellar object passing through our solar system. Designated 3I Atlas, the visitor has captured global scientific attention due to its unusual size, estimated at roughly 5.6 kilometers across, extraordinary speed, and puzzling trajectory. Unlike typical interstellar objects, it emits nickel tetracarbonyl, a compound previously known only from industrial processes on Earth, and lacks detectable iron, further deepening. The object's odd behavior and chemical composition have divided the scientific community, prompting debates about whether it could be a natural relic from another solar system, or it could be something far more extraordinary, challenging conventional cosmic explanations. 3I Atlas, the giant interstellar object moving faster than ever seen before. Now, first detected in July, 3I Atlas is estimated to be roughly the size of Manhattan, approximately 5.6 kilometers in diameter, and weighs an astonishing, you guessed it, 33 billion tons. There's more of that Masonic theater for you. Its velocity nearly doubles that of previous interstellar travelers like Oumuamua and Borisov, and its behavior challenges some established laws of cosmic physics. Like recent computer simulations reveal fluctuating brightness patterns, indicating potential tumbling motion and uneven surface composition that could hint at an unusual origin. Now, the object's unusual motion and trajectory, particularly Its alignment within 5 degrees of the planetary ecliptic plane suggests a rare precision in its orbit. Such features have led some experts to consider the possibilities beyond traditional celestial mechanics. Is 3i Atlas man-made? Dr. Loeb shares his theory. Dr. Avi Loeb, a Harvard professor known for his unconventional theories on extraterrestrial life, has proposed that 3i Atlas may be an artificial in origin. Loeb highlighted its unique chemical composition and unusual behavior as potential indicators of natural phenomena. The object's gas jet points towards the sun, contrary to normal comet behavior, and its finely tuned orbit may suggest deliberate design. He also claims that NASA may not be fully transparent with all the scientific data fueling online speculation. Observation using Hawaii's Keck 2 telescope revealed that 3i Atlas emits nickel tetracarbonyl, a compound typically produced only by industrial processes, blah, blah, blah. Discovery has divided the community. So, let's see here.
It will pass closest to the sun on October 29th. 2025, I got a text message the other day from someone who said that he is trading options on the volatility of the market with an expiration date of October 29th in order to make money. And I immediately thought that I don't know if there will be meaning to money if this object turns out to be technological after October 29th. If you want to take a vacation, take it before that date, because who knows what will happen. Now
Yeah, so he's saying take a vacation before that day, right? October 29th. So let's okay. I've got some captures of this thing. So let's go here. Let's go to, and you can see just the different posts. It's actually crazy. Where's it at here? Let me pull up the video. Here we go. Here's some images of 3i Atlas right here. You can see it. Look at that. It's fucking huge, man. Look at it. It's a big giant red comet. It's huge. And here is video of it.
Connection telescope. Telescope connected right into the sun. There we go. Telescope moving towards more or less the position of the sun. Then I will fine tune manually. And then you will see that 3i Atlas is very, very close. The telescope will almost have no movement when I go to 3i Atlas.
Come here, look how wild it is. The solar limb, it's the edge of the sun. Now we will go to 3i Atlas. Let me try to access NASA, hopefully it's not down, to get the precise coordinates. Man, it feels like with all that wind, it feels like something is going to happen. It's crazy. With the coordinates, let's see the movement of the telescope. Go to. It moves just slightly, and this is the position of 3i Atlas. The telescope is trying to stabilize. I don't see anything. No artifact like Stingray. Remember that what I'm doing is something that people don't do. So I have no reference how to do this with the solar telescope. Solar telescopes are used only exclusively to watch the sun. So what I'm doing is something new. Let me invert the colors. This is the position of 3i Atlas right now. It can be this.
Right there.
This small dot here.
That's fucking huge, dude.
We'll wait. It can be this. It can be this, guys. 3i Atlas, something here, and then the comma. This will fit.
Look at that. That is huge.
Crazy, man. I'm pointing that telescope that you see in the upper right side of the screen. It's pointing very, it's almost touching the sun. That's why this is so bright today. And to the position that NASA has on the coordinates of 3i Atlas right now. I'm trying to look now. You see the dot here? And something around? This should be a glare, man. It has something in the middle and only one circle and something here, like, you know, some... It's very faint, man. You see this kind of a cone or something here? Guys, I told the coordinates. Anybody, the skepticals, can check the coordinates at 5 p.m. UTC. At 5 p.m. UTC on NASA. So those are the coordinates I inserted. It's all recorded. So I like all clear.
There you go. Right there. Look at that. And that's from the twin telescope on the right, and that's what this dude was showing right on the left. That is a fucking big ass comet, dude. The thing is huge. You can see it like pretty good. And that was broad daylight, you know. I know they said it was pretty faint. You couldn't see it with the naked eye, but you know, that wasn't a super crazy telescope he had there, and he was able to see it really well. So there you can see it right there. That's very interesting. You know, very interesting. And with this thing being red and, you know, huge, this is kind of like, you know, one of the things I've always had just kind of like as a theory of my own, you know, whenever they're like mentioning nuclear war and shit like that, you have to think of like, and I know there are people out there that believe, you know, the earth is flat and we're in a closed system with a firmament and, you know, there couldn't possibly be an asteroid or a comet hit the earth or anything like that. But if nothing could hit the earth, then how do you describe, you know, you can't have it both ways, right? If you want it to be the biblical way, right? And just biblical, and I agree with, you know, the biblical, and a firmament, you don't understand what the nature of the firmament actually is, for one, right? And for two, that would mean God is in charge of everything, right? And the Bible says, which if you're using the Bible, you know, for your cosmology here and all of that, right? It talks about wormwood and a star, you know, and all of that falling to the earth. So you can't have it both ways, right? Some people want to be like, oh, well, that couldn't possibly happen because there's a firmament. And then like, just like they, you know, people pick and choose with Bible verses of like what they want to believe and what they don't, which I think is really convenient for those people. It's like, oh, well, you know, the Bible says this, and they'll use that to disprove one thing and prove, you know, whatever they wanted to prove. But then they'll discount the rest of what the Bible says on other stuff. And it's like, yeah, okay, well, let's go with, you know, biblical flat earth, right? Let's go with that just for a moment, right? Which I'm not saying the earth is flat. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know what fucking shape it is. And neither do you. So, but let's just go with the biblical flat earth, right? And, you know, if that would be true, and they say, oh, well, we have a firmament, so, you know, space isn't what we think it is, and asteroids and comets aren't what we think they are. And, you know, well, then one thing would be true, that NASA couldn't be able to detect any of these objects, right? If none of this was real, and they do. And not only do they do it, people at home do it as well. They detect the same exact objects that NASA detects. So there is something out there one way or the other. There are moving celestial objects. That's fact, right? We can confirm that with, you know, both NASA and regular people. Whether NASA is liars or not, we can confirm that. And then two, you know, even if there is a firmament, apparently it doesn't matter if God is the one sending the object to destroy your ass, right? He made the firmament. He can also send something to bust your ass and bust the firmament, you know. And it talks about the sky receding back like a scroll, islands and mountains being removed from their place, right? And it talks about wormwood, and that it makes the waters wormwood, and a star falling from the heavens. All of these things, you know, are in the seals and trumpets and all of that of the book of Revelation. So, you know, you can't have it both ways. Biblical flat earth does not discount asteroids and comets at all. So just for, I know there's always those people out there who, you know, say that kind of shit, but it's like, sorry, dude, that's just, you can't have it both ways. It's one or the other, you know. And then if you believe in the, you know, heliocentric, conventional, you know, academia version of things, then there you go. You know, there's a cometary object out there, you know. So either way, right? Either way, it's a possibility. I'm not saying this thing's going to crash into the earth or anything, but I am saying, you know, if you look at like all the signs that are taking place right now, we appear to be pretty close, you know, to, you know, if not in the last days, you know. And I told you about a lot of the different things earlier, right? Pertaining to that as well. Now, my theory is, and we're going to get into some of this in just a minute. My theory pertaining to a lot of this is, if we are in fact, and think about it, the United States government would be fully aware of, you know, some impending cataclysm or catastrophe, right? That would be definitely something they would be aware of. Now, if they were aware, they would need to make preparations for something like that. Now, think about the recent, you know, little mini crash we had of, you know, all the little meme coins and stable coins and shit like that, you know, meme coins and shit like that when it comes to crypto, right? And now this guy's telling us, Avi Loeb is saying, you know, if you got a vacation or making money moves, do it before, you know, October the 29th when this thing passes, because they know something they're not telling us about. Okay? That's a little suspect, but, you know, a lot of people think he's crazy. You know, and then you look at what's taking place with, there's really no precedent for why Trump is doing the federalization of the National Guard, why he's sending all these federal agents and shit like that into all of the cities and the population centers of the United States. There's really no real precedent for this. Like, if we think logically, there's no real reason for him to do that. You know, these cities aren't in total chaos. Like, I don't know. And what's sad is so many people buy into the propaganda. It's like, I feel like I can't even reach certain people because they're so far gone from the propaganda. Like, they're gone. There's no talking to them anymore. Like, die-hard Trump supporters, they're cooked. They're just completely cooked. Anything that he says, they take it as just, it's the gospel, right? They don't challenge it. They don't question it. If he's doing it, then it must be right, and everything he's doing is right. And anybody saying opposite is just a liberal or fake news or the media just attacking him, and he's sent by God. And just, I'm sure you guys have heard all that shit yourself, right? And some of you probably believe it, you know? But the truth of the matter is he's part of the government, you know? And what's crazy is the people that were voting for him, and his whole movement started off because we were sick of the overreach of the federal government. We were sick of that. And now you have those very same people that are cheering it on. It's like, it's crazy. It's like they must not understand what controlled opposition means, you know, and they have cognitive dissonance at such a bad, you know, a bad rate. Like they can't see none of it anymore, right? Like the programming, the mind control, the propaganda has just done them in. It's like there's no more logical thinking. It's all emotion. You know, and once we get into that emotional, you know, shit, it's like the logical side of our brain just cuts off. And I mean, we've already had that on the left, right? The crazy liberal stuff, all the political correctness, the cancel culture, the censorship. I mean, you know, them trying to tell us that, you know, there's more than two genders and the gender fluid, just all of that, right? Like the racial shit, it's just like it would become nauseating. Well, now the other side has become like this, you know, and that's why you can't buy into either. You know, and to me, this should be a big lesson for the people of the world, and especially citizens of the United States, right? Like, see, you thought you had, you know, you thought that like you had the anti-establishment candidate, and now he is the establishment full on. And he's the establishment such so that he's got you cheering on federal agents snatching people up off the streets and shit. People are cheering this on, like literally. And then anybody who protests him, you know, which, you know, I did go to the No Kings protest, really just to get some footage and shit like that and see what the turnout was here in Cincinnati this past weekend. Not because I'm a liberal or anything like that, just because I wanted to film and just see what it was. You know, it's like now we have them saying like anybody who went there, they don't represent us. It's like, you know. So here, let's go to some videos here. And this is Steve Bannon on Trump having a third term.
To sort of get accommodated with that.
So what about the 22nd Amendment?
There's many different alternatives. At the appropriate time, we'll lay out what the plan is, but there's a plan. We had longer odds in 16 and longer odds in 24 than we got in 28. And President Trump will be the president of the United States, and the country needs him to be president of the United States. We have to finish what we started. Trump is a vehicle. I know this will drive you guys crazy, but he's a vehicle of divine providence. He's an instrument. He's very imperfect. He's not churchy, not particularly religious, but he's an instrument of divine will. And you can tell this of how he's pulled this off. We need him for at least one more term, right? And he'll get that in 28.
You're not driving me crazy. I'm trying to understand the coherence of the things you've just told me. On the one hand, you've said the Constitution is fit for purpose. Secondly, you said that President Trump needs another term, even though the 22nd Amendment makes pretty clear that he cannot have another term.
Why does it make that clear?
Because he's in his second term already.
At some point in time, we will make sure we go through Zanny and define all those terms.
But you will be undermining the spirit of that amendment, even if you find some way around it.
If the American people, with the mechanisms we have, put Trump back in office, are the American people tearing up the Constitution? Would that be tearing up?
Well,
would the American people be going against the spirit of the Constitution, ma'am?
I think yes, actually, because I think what you will end up with is a populist justification for a quasi-dictatorship.
That's not true at all.
That's what it sounds like.
Trump is a dictatorship. Did you just see the compromises he had to make in the big, beautiful bill? You see the compromises he has to do on everything, on accommodating Zelensky, on what President Trump. President Trump is nothing but a series of negotiations to kind of keep this thing rolling forward, where he's having trade-offs all the time.
Steve, you've just spent the last 20 minutes telling me we have to smash the other side. There's no room for debate. There's no room for compromise. We must smash them. And now you're telling me this is a negotiation. I mean, that's
No.
I guess that's why it seems to me some kind of tension
First off,
there.
the only way President Trump wins in 2028 and continues to stay in office is by the will of the American people. Okay? And the will of the American people is what the Constitution embodies. And so I think we're going to be in good hands there. We need to finish what we started. He's going to get a third term. So Trump 28, Trump is going to be president 28, and people just ought to get accommodated with that.
So what about the 22nd Amendment?
There's many.
Yeah, so you guys heard that right there, right? And this has kind of been the story, at least from my perspective. A lot of, I feel like, and I've got a list. We'll go through it here in a moment, but when he's talking about we need to finish the job, I don't know if people really want this job to be finished. You guys have seen, the book by Ingersoll Lockwood, 1900, or The Last President. I'm trying to think of the site, man. Illuminatus something, which, showed Trump as the last president. Like, there's a lot of stuff with the references of him being the last president. So that doesn't bode well for the American people, right? If he is the last president, right? That means the fall of the United States. I showed you guys the federal ICE agent in 2016 that unalived himself, right? And in his letter that he left, he talked about the impending collapse of the United States, and that they knew that this was coming, and that they were practicing on, shooting, men, women, and children, and they were told to, quote, get used to it, right? Which, I mean, I can pull up the letter if I need to, but you guys seen that in my video before last. I believe that one was the one I had that in. And they were going to, under the guise of the removal of illegal aliens and immigrants, they would deploy federal agents to all the major cities, exactly like they're doing right now, right? And then when this collapse took place, and that there was an impending economic collapse, and like I said, we just had seen this, Bitcoin, not Bitcoin, but crypto coin nosedive, right? Just a week or so ago, right? All these meme coins and shit like that just hitting the shitter, right? Which is telegraphing something. There's something more coming. There's something bigger coming, right? With these 100% tariffs and all this shit with China, right? This is kind of showing you, and just to kind of let you know, tariffs and shit like that, that is before actual war, right? Whenever you're in trade wars and shit like that, that is before actual going to blows. So the World War III, in my opinion, will be between a Russia-China alliance against the United States, And then, like I mentioned, there is, the whole Masonic theater aspect, that 1871 letter to Mazzini outlining the 3 world wars, right? And they have played out to a T, and the 3rd World War is the Muslim Arabic world versus the Zionist, right? And that it brings us to the point of mental, physical, economic, exhaustion, and that's where we're at with this Israel, Gaza, Palestine bullshit. Like, we're at the point of exhaustion, between the Islamicist and, Judaism. And they point fingers, back and forth. I watched a fucking interview of Roseanne Barr the other day, and the entire interview was just about how anybody that says anything about Jewish people as anti-Semitic and are funded by Qatari and Islamicists, right? And I mean, I know there is a lot of that goes on, you know, and I'm not saying that's wrong, but it's like not every single person that disagrees with Israel is funded by Qatari and then is Islamicist, you know, that's just it's not true. You know, or anti-Semitic. You know, there are policies and things that just aren't good for America that have been taking place for a long time, you know, and, you know, like I said, we're being drawn to the point of exhaustion on that as well. We know biblically with Israel and all of this, you know, this is huge, you know, including the peace deal, right, in the Middle East. And it talks about, you know, the peace and security before sudden destruction, you know. We got this incoming three-eye atlas, this red comet, this huge red comet, you know, that's this interstellar object. You know, we've talked about how this fits into the destroyer, which I'll read, you know, about the destroyer in just a minute. And then we've got this, you know, attempt of suspending habeas corpus, right? And then, you know, there's been, you know, the leaking of the ICE agent talking about this economic collapse, and that when it happens, these federal agents would already be in place because in the name of fighting illegal aliens, right? And that they would lock all them up first, and that when the collapse happened, that they would basically be given a code, they'd hit the switch and gas all of them to death, right? Because they have no rights, right? They have no constitutional rights. They have no freedom. They're not citizens of the United States. That's why when there's no due process for them. And Trump keeps threatening with insurrection and all of this because that's in Rex 84, Jade Helm, all of these exercises of the past, right? The basis of insurrection is what allows him to go past the Constitution and habeas corpus and institute some sort of martial law. By the way, just letting you know, that's why he keeps pushing the Insurrection Act shit. And if you know that there's some incoming catastrophe or cataclysm, what better way to do it than do it this way? Oh, we're fighting illegal aliens, illegal immigrants. We'll build a wall to keep you all in, right? Because all of our economy, our fiat currency, all of it is built off the bondage or the bonds of your Social Security, right? That bond number you're given when you're born. So the debt is all on the citizens. You're slaves to this system. So when we fall, the debt will be paid by you, the people, being put into slavery to another country, most likely China, you know. And I'm sure China and Russia will come in under the guise of the UN because there'll be civil war and, you know, chaos here, right? Which they said after all these federal agents are in place, they would gas them, you know, to make room for American citizens, and that they grid down, right? Knock the power down. This would be the bank. We wake up one morning, the banks would all be insolvent. They'd all be done. There'd be no way to get any money, no digital money. We already know they're coming with the suspension. Here we go. Let's go here. Of SNAP.
President in U.S. history to cut off SNAP benefits to people in America. So as of the end of next week, SNAP benefits are going to be frozen. They go away, and that affects millions and millions of people in America and certainly in Massachusetts. We're currently evaluating what we can do. Obviously, it's a time to give as much as you can to our food pantries who do a wonderful job. I'll be meeting with my anti-hunger strike force that I stood up a while ago to talk more with them about what we can do to feed families here. But it's unbelievable. The first time in American history that a president during a shutdown has cut off food to families. That's what's happening right now. It's a choice that Donald Trump is making. He can choose to reverse that. I strongly urge him to do so. Don't take food away from people. Don't take food off the table of Americans. Donald Trump is the first president in U.S. history to cut off.
Think about that, right? So, and this is, you know, and this is what creates real chaos, by the way. If you want to see real chaos, stop feeding people. You know, that's what keeps stability in a nation. People won't do shit until they're starving. And then, you know, all bets are off. That's when you'll see true chaos. So, you know, and, you know, like I said, the letter, you know, written by him says that, you know, the ICE agent says the pending economic collapse, that nobody would be able to access EBT, the banks, their money, no electronic money. If you don't have cash, you're done, basically. And when this happens, that, you know, they will then kill the power grid and the internet, claim that it is a attack, a cyber attack, which we already know Klaus Schwab and all of this, they've talked about cyber attacks, right, being the next thing, right, that will be the next thing is a cyber attack, you know, at the World Economic Forum in Davos and all of this. And that when that happens, you know, when the grid's down and the internet's down, they'll dispatch those federal agents who are already in place, because in the name of the illegal aliens, right, which we see that's already happening, and they'll be dispatched as hit teams, basically, to go out and black bag and take care of who they deem to be militant, you know, Americans, dissidents, political dissidents. And if you don't think that that is, you know, even possible, I want you to ask yourself, you know, is this particular president shown you that he's willing to, you know, use the National Guard, use the feds, use the things at his disposal, you know, for his political agendas? You know, and if I'm, you know, whether you're a supporter or not, I believe if you're honest with yourself, you know, the answer is yes. You know, we know he's willing to do that. He's not above that at all, right? He's done that already, and he'll continue to do that, you know. And if we're in, you know, war or civil war or collapse of some sort, there won't be an election in 2028. He will be in there for a third term to finish the job. And what is the job? You know, exactly. The collapse of the United States, you know, a one world system, a one world government, a new world order. You know, you got to think of like what cloth he's cut from. He's not like you and me. He's not one of us. I don't know where people get this fucking idea that he's some outsider. He's a fucking billionaire, you know. He went to a Jesuit school, you know, at Fordham University. He's a fucking Jesuit, you know. That's what he is, you know. And he's in bed with the Zionists, and it's obvious. I don't know what more people need to see to understand that. You know, that's why he won't release the Epstein files, because he's in them. And that's out now, and nobody's talking about that anymore. They're too distracted with everything else.
Legally, there's no due process, and I'm telling you, this is coming to a head. We are going to suspend the writ of habeas corpus if the courts keep ruling against this and don't allow these mass deportations to continue. Just like President Lincoln, this was an invasion. The country's at war. He's commander in chief. It's Article 2 power, and this is going to come.
Are you predicting that will happen? Or
First off, there is going to be a constitutional crisis before the court leaves. You know this. You just saw the federal judge in San Francisco last night ruled against his Article 2 power to basically rearrange and take, you know, fire people in these agencies, etc. There's a challenge. The only way the Democrats are even winning right now is to delay, is to deny, is to delay. They have no political operation. They have no counter argument. They have no populist economics. So what they're doing is getting more and more radical on these raids like they did in New Jersey yesterday. And the judges are trying to stop him. The Supreme Court's going to have to make a decision about President Trump's Article 2 powers, and we're going to see it. And I believe if the courts keep trying to slow him down, you're going to see him, as Stephen Miller laid out pretty well yesterday, and it'll be, I'm sure, developed over time, suspension of the writ of habeas corpus, just like President Lincoln did in the Civil War.
Will Trump run for a third term?
Yes.
So,
And he'll win the third term.
the 22nd Amendment's pretty clear on this, right?
It's pretty clear what his Article 2 power is, and I think we have 250 lawsuits in federal court right now. So when people tell me that, it's pretty clear. It's pretty clear what the president's power is. It's pretty clear what his power is to basically reprogram. And he had a federal judge yesterday gave a temporary restraining order for the entire nation on 21 different agencies. So when I hear that argument, I say, hey, the Constitution's clear on a lot of things until it's defined. President Trump will run again. He will run again, and he will win again, and he'll be the president on the afternoon of January 2029.
Think about that, man.
If you're not an American...
They're telling you, they're telling you. You know, this is being put right in your fucking face, man. And where is it at here? Right, we have the military telling them to get prepared.
Trust me, it's coming. Across battlefields, our character has never wavered. Just as the nature of war, the clash of wills, the test of fortitude, the demand for discipline remains the same. You do not want to be on the receiving end of that bunch of ass whooping. You do not. If you're an adversary, hoorah. If you're an adversary and you want to have your butt kicked, then mess with the Marine Corps, because we'll do it. We'll do it for you. When the next fight comes, and sadly it will come.
Right. So, I mean, you know, I hope people they're getting ready for this, because I mean we're getting really close, guys. We're getting really close.
$130 million in taxpayer money for past investigations involving Trump, including the Russia election interference investigation and the classified documents case involving what was found at Mar-a-Lago. The U.S. taxpayers would foot the bill here, and here's Rachel Scott.
Tonight, sources tell ABC News President Trump is pushing for the government to give him $230 million, a wholly unprecedented personal payout from the American taxpayers as compensation for the federal investigations he's faced. The president says the Justice Department owes him.
I guess they probably owe me a lot of money for that. Probably, yeah, that's true. That's very interesting.
President Trump filed claims against the Justice Department in 2023 and again last year. One about the investigation into his campaign and Russian meddling in the 2016 election. The other concerning the FBI search of his Mar-a-Lago home, where agents removed boxes of classified documents Trump had taken from the White House and kept in a storage area, a ballroom, and even a bathroom. The president calling himself a victim of malicious prosecution, claiming his privacy rights were violated. If the settlement goes through, he would personally collect nearly $250 million from American taxpayers.
If I get money from our country, I'll do something nice with it, like give it to charity or give it to the White House while we restore the White House. And we're doing a great job in the White House.
The Justice Department officials who would likely have to sign off on the settlement were once President Trump's own personal lawyers. Attorney General Pam Bondi and her deputy Todd Blanche. They recently stood with the president in the Oval Office as he acknowledged the extraordinary situation.
They raided my house in Florida. It was an illegal raid. I have a lawsuit that was doing very well, and when I became president, I said, I'm sort of suing myself. I don't know, how do you settle the lawsuit? I'll say, give me X dollars, right? And I don't know what to do with the lawsuit. It's a great lawsuit, and now I won. It sort of looks bad. I'm suing myself, right?
Sources tell ABC News that President Trump is now pushing the Justice Department to pay him $230 million in...
I mean, and let's, I mean, think of all of this in context, right? Like, this is what I'm saying about controlled opposition. Like, remember, J6, right? This was fucking 284 federal agents, right? That were used to set up his own his own people, his own base. It's fucking crazy. And this is a video, right? The DOJ urging the Fed. This is the feds right here. So, I mean, then we have the deployment of federal agents to San Francisco.
That movement, any idea where they'll go from there?
Well, it's absolutely predictable. It's a script that's been written for centuries. It's the authoritarian playbook. You announce your intention to send the military to streets, doing domestic policing operations. You wildly overstate or completely make up crime statistics that are not real, that do not justify such action. And for this administration, you send first masked men to the cities that you want to militarize. You send your spokesperson, this bloviator by the name of Bovino, I think was his name, or the bagman, Homan, out there. You do a bunch of social media videos. You bring your entire press corps there to highlight your patriotism as you're out there taking strawberry salesmen off the street. You find a few people that deserve to be taken off the street, unquestionably. You highlight those, but there's hundreds that are collateral damage. Communities are torn asunder. It creates anxiety and stress, and that manifests into expressions of free speech. And then you use those expressions and those images as the justification to send the guard and suppress free speech, suppress free expression.
Trump is deploying more than 100 federal agents to Alameda County starting tomorrow. What's your reaction to that move, and any idea where they'll go from there?
Well, it's absolutely predictable. It's a script that's been written for centuries. It's the authoritarian playbook. You announce your intention to send the military to streets, doing domestic policing operations. You wildly overstate or completely make up crime statistics that are not real, that do not justify such action. And for this administration, you send first masked men to the cities that you want to militarize. You send your spokesperson, this bloviator by the name of Bovino, I think was his name, or the bagman, Homan, out there. You do a bunch of social media videos. You bring your entire press corps there to highlight your patriotism as you're out there taking strawberry salesmen off the street. You find a few people that deserve to be taken off the street, unquestionably. You highlight those, but there's hundreds that are collateral damage. Communities are torn asunder. It creates anxiety and stress, and that manifests into expressions of free speech. And then you use those expressions and those images as the justification to send the...
So, I mean, I'm sorry, like, and this is, to me, this is what's really frustrating, I think, about the time that we're in right now, is like people really can't see past the two-party paradigm. They really can't. It's like I was really hopeful, some years back when all of this kind of started. I was really hopeful that, like, the exposing of all the government lies and the pedophilia and just all the corruption and all of it would be enough to get people to see, And it seems like it's only gotten worse. You know, you have people cheering on ICE and the feds, like, going into cities. Like, I've never seen anything like it. You know? Never seen anything like it. And of course, we have all the AI shit, but
These guys outside, they appear to hate the idea that Americans can enjoy their communities. They knew the fact that D.C. a week ago had a higher murder rate than Trinidad and Tobago. We're not going to let the communists destroy a great American city, let alone the nation's capital. And let's just also address another thing. All these demonstrators that you've seen out here in recent days, all of these elderly white hippies, they're not part of the city and never have been. So we're going to ignore these stupid white hippies that all need to go home and take a nap because they're all over 90 years old. And we're going to get back to the business of protecting the American people and the citizens of Washington, D.C. Kind of crazy. You hear these guys?
I mean, you hear what they're saying. Like, it's clearly, you know, I've seen so many different things. Like, and I went to the protest. They said here in Cincinnati, there was like 10,000 people there. Is what the estimated numbers was. It's not a lot of people, but still. And then the numbers, you know, I think were like 7 to 12 million or something across the United States, something like that. You know, it's still, you know, a lot of people, you know, that didn't go, that don't agree with this shit as well. And it's like, you don't have to be a liberal to not agree with what's going on. It's the crazy part. Like, I'm not a liberal, you know, I'm not. And I don't agree with what's going on because I know where it's leading. You know, this is extreme federal overreach. This is unconstitutional is what it is. And it's dangerous as fuck. And to me, I don't give a fuck who's doing it, what president's doing it. If it's President Trump, I don't care. You know, when you start overstepping the Constitution, you know, and this is what's crazy. Like, this is how I can't, as like a, you know, someone that's very more, you know, libertarian, a constitutionalist, more conservative leaning myself, or classic liberals, you know, I can't reconcile how people that consider themselves to be conservatives, libertarians, constitutionalists, right? All of these type of folks, how they are able to reconcile this, like this unconstitutional bullshit, the federalization of the National Guard, the attempted suspension of habeas corpus, the Declaration of Insurrection Acts, and, you know, the law. There's no reason to be putting feds in all of the nation's cities, and we all know it. We all know it. Nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. Our cities didn't all of a sudden just, you know, skyrocket in crime because Trump got into office. That's not true, and we all know it. You know, we know it. This is an excuse to do exactly what, you know, Gavin Newsom said, right? This is the authoritarian playbook. You know, Hitler done the same exact things, and I hate to even do that because that's such a, you know, a left liberal thing where, you know, they made these comparisons of Trump to Hitler so much that now it falls on deaf ears. It's like, it's hollow, you know, it's hollow because they were making these comparisons when there was no reason to make them, you know. So now when he's actually doing things that can be comparable, nobody's listening. You know, nobody's listening. And now you've got, because of, you know, and I've talked about this, you know, like how he took fake news and then it was used to destroy the mainstream media that was attacking him. And then all of a sudden, you know, there was the rise of independent media, the alternative media. Well, guess what? It then got flipped around on all of us. And then we became the fake news. And now once again, we're being fact checked by the mainstream, which is all in support of him now. You know, we've just watched everything be flipped on its head. We've watched, you know, the entire, everybody, you know, in his cabinet and in his regime this time, they're not defenders of the Constitution or the United States of America. They're loyal to Trump, not the Constitution, you know. And it's actually scary. It truly is. It's scary to watch what's happening, you know. We got FBI visiting anti-ICE protesters.
James Keefe with the FBI.
Hey, Miles, nice to meet you, brother. Good. How you doing?
We came out here to ask you questions regarding a protest that happened on the 11th of June.
On the 11th?
Yeah.
What protest?
There's a protest out by the country club in Valencia area. And we've been just basically going around asking questions for a few people that were brought up and your name was brought up. So
Okay.
let's see if you had a couple minutes to answer some questions regarding the protest that happened.
Yeah, where were you with?
I'm with the FBI. Name's
Okay.
James.
Okay.
So I just want to know if you have a few minutes to chat.
Yeah. Inside?
Yeah, wherever you go ahead, yeah.
Or, I got roommates. Can we do it out?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're not trying to, you know. Oh, I forgot these things. They keep talking.
And just to let you know too, the FBI also sent the Cincinnati police to question me 3 weeks ago. So, just saying. Just saying. This is FBI the feds they are raiding Chinatown in New York.
And the next fight.
Yeah, so I mean, this is Chicago officers getting tear gassed by the feds.
And come on, man. Y'all know that was.
Officers arrived on scene. They met with the federal agents who were out there. The federal agents had deployed chemical agents. They deployed chemical agents while our officers were there. Those who will tell you that our officers weren't there, say that to the 27 officers who were affected by the chemical agents that were deployed by federal agents. There were 27 reports done to document our officers who were affected by that gas.
Catch the latest on this story at Fox.
This is our country. Why are we being beat up because we're doing a peaceful march?
This
was
is
to be a
Cincinnati.
symbolic walk across the bridge. There were some passerbyers that were not happy about what was going on here and began to antagonize the crowd.
The story I'm getting is they were peacefully assembling, having a protest, and then somebody came down here in a car and antagonized them. And there was a confrontation between that driver and the protesters. Then those protesters took it upon themselves to block the bridge.
And I said, I'm American. And he just threw me down on the ground and he bloodied me up. And I am 70 years old. This is my country. I am American. I told him that. I said, I don't know what you're doing. I said, you're crazy. He came over and beat this nice guy up next to me, young kid, threw him down on the ground and started punching at him and tasing him, just like he did two other people. And then he bloodied me up and threw me on the ground. This is our country.
Yeah, and this is in Cincinnati right here, which the guy that they were protesting for actually spoke at our event this past Saturday. So he's out now, the clergy member or whatever he was, Amen. And they put the Cincinnati police chief on leave too. So she was the one who, I don't know if you guys remember, there was a white couple that was jumped here in Cincinnati by like 10 people, 10 black people. They beat the shit out of them. She came out and basically said that social media was gassing everybody up and that, you know, like, I don't like her myself, but, you know, they put her on leave. So she's which she said she's not going to step down, which I hope they shit can her anyways. But, yeah. So, I mean, it's you know, I was happy that it hadn't hit my city yet, but it has now. It's like it's in Cincinnati as well. It's like you can tell they're just going after. In Cincinnati, you know, the chief. She's a Democrat, you know. So, and this is a liberal city for sure. I know you wouldn't think so with it being like so close to, you know, Kentucky and all of that, but you know, and everywhere around it is not, but the city itself definitely is. And I feel like that's a lot of these major cities. You know, I've lived in a couple of big cities, Baltimore and Cincinnati primarily, but yeah, so. You can kind of tell that these are the cities that they're going after, you know, Chicago, you know, LA. I mean, think about the cities that are, you know, it's like they're you know, they're being overtaken. So, and then we have talking about, you know, and notice they're saying that everybody that's protesting or everybody that's against this is old white hippies, and it's just not true. People of all ages and colors, you know, don't like what's going on in our country right now.
On the weekend, released a video of him pooping on the American people.
The president uses social media to make a point. You can argue he's probably the most effective person who's ever used social media for that. He is using satire to make a point. He is not calling for the murder of his political opponents.
Say that the Democrats had a Hate America.
Yeah, the Hate America rally, which, just to kind of show you here, we'll go do that. We'll look at the, here's the video that they're talking about. Really funny, actually. I'm not gonna lie, that one's funny. We got, let's see, I've got some, here's a funny one too. Golden toilet. one's funny. And then there's one more. Where's it at? It's it's one that Gavin Newsom made. Gotta find it here. Let's see if I can find it, guys. Give me 1 second. One moment. And then here's another one too. This is about the MAGA ballroom.
And that was the end of the first phase of democracy as laid out by the founding fathers, and the beginning of the healing.
So I think that one's a really good one, actually. So I got the Gavin Newsom one somewhere. I gotta find it real fast. There it is. Here it is. This is Gavin Newsom one. So, I mean, you guys see, it's, I mean, it is what it is, right? But I find those to all be pretty funny. So, we're gonna move forward here. We're gonna look at some exercises in just a moment here, but I want to go through a few things first. You go right here. Hold on. The whole AI shit videos, I don't know why, there's just been a bunch of those dropping. So Trump started with the first one, and then it's just been one after another. So, you know, but just think about it too, honestly. I mean, really, I want you to, consider, too, like, think about how if we were having some sort of there we go, if we were having some sort of collapse or coming catastrophe, cataclysm, anything like this, right? Like, you know, this would be a perfect plan, you know, to like prepare for that, right? To, you know, if you know there's some sort of, there's going to be an economic collapse, this is going to result in some sort of, you know, world war. This is the controlled demolition of democracy and nationalism and the United States and just all of it, right? This controlled demolition is like placing all these federal agents in all of the cities, taking over the cities, getting them under the, you know, the thumb of the Fed, you know, and getting everything in place. That way, then they can take down the political dissidents. And like I said, within that, you know, that letter of that federal ICE agent, you know, what he talked about was that this would happen. They'd freeze everything. They'd kill the grid. They'd say that it was a cyber attack. The internet would be down. That way nobody on social media, no influencers could warn everybody that it was coming. Nobody could get any money. You see, they're already freezing the SNAP. They've had the government shut down. All of this is playing right into this, guys. You know, and then they would get control of all these cities, the federalization of the National Guard, the suspension of habeas corpus, right? Like, this is all playing right into this. And then, you know, you have this scenario of like, you know, the martial law and all of this, you know, within this collapse. That way, that would be probable cause to bring in, you know, the UN, you know, China, Russia, and all this. And, you know, it's just, we're in a very, very crazy time. Now we have the indicators of possible martial law and major government internal control, significant deployment of armed forces domestically, large numbers of military or National Guard units placed on the streets or in cities with unusual rules of engagement, the use of the Insurrection Act of 1807 or similar executive order to federalize troops. Think about this, guys. Military units taking over civilian law enforcement roles, securing zones, running checkpoints, the suspension or erosion of normal civil rights like habeas corpus, right? Curfews, restrictions of movement, public assembly, or speech without clear cause. Courts, civilian police, or local government sidelined in favor of military emergency rules. Indications that the government is preparing to enforce martial law style rules, even if the terminology isn't used. So we're gonna look at a few of these here too. Let's take a look at a couple of these. You see, Al Jazeera, could Trump invoke the Insurrection Act, and what powers would that be? Could Trump invoke Insurrection Act, and what powers would that give him? Experts debunk claims of Trump declaring martial law on April 20th, citing legal boundaries in confusion with the Insurrection Act. Social media posts have warned for more than a month that President Donald Trump would declare martial law on 4/20, which is Hitler's birthday, by the way, which would typically mean suspending civil law while the military takes control of civilian functions such as courts. But many of the posts appeared to conflate martial law with potential invocation of the Insurrection Act of 1807, which was mentioned in a recent executive order. 2025 executive orders face legal pushback. And let's see which executive order that was. Alien Enemies Act to deport migrants. Right? The Trump administration using the Alien Enemies Act of 1798 to deport suspected Venezuelan gang members and others. And the legality of its move has come under judicial scrutiny. On March 15th, James E. Boasberg, federal judge at district court in D.C., issued temporary restraining order to halt the deportations. Trump administration was using the more than 200-year-old law, but the U.S. Supreme Court last week overturned it in a narrow 5-4 decision, and deportations under the Alien Enemies Act to proceed. The Supreme Court was upheld in the rule of law in our nation by allowing the president, whoever that may be, to be able to secure our borders and protect our families and our country itself. So, I just learned about this executive order, Section 6B, which says Trump will invoke the Insurrection Act of 1807. The narrative spread beyond Reddit to Facebook, blah, blah, blah. January 20th, executive order declared a national emergency at the U.S. southern border and required the Defense of Homeland Security secretaries to submit a report on border conditions within 90 days. The report should include any recommendations regarding additional actions that may be necessary to obtain complete operational control of the southern border, including whether to invoke the Insurrection Act of 1807, the executive order said. Invoking the Insurrection Act would allow Trump to direct federal military personnel to enforce federal law at the U.S. southern border, but the legal experts told PolitiFact it would not amount to martial law. They said that they do not see a clear path for Trump to lawfully implement martial law in the way it's commonly understood. Trump, on his part, has not publicly discussed martial law. In a statement to PolitiFact, the Defense Department said the agency is working with the Homeland Security Department to develop the requested report on the southern border conditions. And the Insurrection Invocation Act would allow temporarily suspends another U.S. law that forbids federal troops from conducting civilian law enforcement. So there you have the civilian law enforcement. The president can invoke the law after determining that unlawful obstructions, combinations, or assemblages or rebellion against the federal government make it impracticable to enforce U.S. law by the ordinary course of judicial proceedings. In those cases, the Insurrection Act would allow the president to direct federal troops as he considers necessary to enforce those laws or to suppress the rebellion. So this is why you see, you know, the shit with Portland and all of this at the ICE, facility. This is my opinion. My personal opinion, I do not believe that those were genuine protesters. I believe that just like we've seen with J6, 284 fucking federal agents, I believe those were federal agents there too. That's my opinion. And that justifies, the invocation of the Insurrection Act, right? Like, if you got feds that are coming in pretending to be civilians, and think about it. Think about the similarity between, the Oath Keepers, fucking Proud Boys, which is led by a Fed, right? He's a federal informant, a confidential informant, CI. The guy that runs, the Proud Boys. Oath Keepers, he was one of their leader was released during the J6 pardons and all of that. And all that J6 shit that was a federal fucking, operation, obviously, which if you joined my Patreon, you would, I have a video just breaking down the entirety of the J6 and showing you that the whole thing is crisis acting and it's just it's bullshit is what it was. And I said that fucking years ago, and now it's been proven. Just like I said all that with the COVID stuff, now it's all been proven. Everything I've been saying for years has all been proven. And I promise you what I'm saying right now will be proven as well. So that's just how this shit goes. It's too easy. They telegraph it all way ahead of time. And all the information's there if you're willing to do the research and do the digging and look, But, and like I said, during round one, he was doing this shit. They're trying to suspend habeas corpus. And then, in 2017 of October of 2017, the presidential alert and all of this shit, right? The unlawful obstructions, combinations, or assemblages of rebellion. So think about that, right? If you're putting these federal agents right outside of these ICE detainee places and they're having to use force, it's to give precedence, right, to do this. as he considers necessary to enforce those laws or suppress the rebellion. Well, if it's federal agents wearing masks like Antifa, dressed up like Oath Keepers, all these groups they're feds. They're operated by feds, dude. The Insurrection Act, broadly written and does not define terms such as insurrection or rebellion. In 1827, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that the authority to decide whether a situation represents an acceptable reason to invoke the Insurrection Act belongs exclusively to the president. Right? So, Chris Edelson, canceled. Chris Edelson, American University assistant professor of government, said the law provides limited authority for the president to use military to respond to genuine emergencies or break down in regular operational law when things are really falling apart. Well, we already know that, they're claiming that things are really falling apart now, even though they're not. So, even though they're not. And let's go back. Where are we at? Sorry, I lost my spot here. Military units taking over civilian law enforcement, securing zones, running checkpoints, suspension or erosion of civil rights and legal protections, curfews, restrictions of movement, public assembly. And see, here in Cincinnati, they are doing this. And this is politically motivated. This is why they fired, whether people like her or not, our chief of police, because they said she's not tough enough on crime. So it's very politically motivated here. In Cincinnati, they're now deploying at Fountain Square, which is downtown. They're deploying the SWAT, specific hours through the day. They've instituted curfews for minors at, over the Rhine in downtown area. So it's like we already have curfews and SWAT and all of this in our city. So, and they shit canned our chief of police. So suspension or erosion of, I don't know what they're doing in your city, but, like I said, they're going after cities that aren't aligned with Trump, right? So we have courts, civilian police, local government sidelined in favor of military emergency. And can the president impose martial law? Officials most often impose law when civilian authority over an area has stopped functioning, like in the case of insurrection or natural disaster. When martial law arrives, curfews and checkpoints replace everyday freedoms, and you can't count on anyone but yourself. And the federal government uses martial law far less frequently than the states, imposing it only a few times since the end of the Reconstruction. Indications that the government is preparing to enforce martial law style rules, even if the terminology isn't used. And this is from military.com. Let's go right here. Everything you need to know about martial law. What is martial law? Well, there is no universal definition. The term often refers to the use of the military for law enforcement, but contrary to popular belief, simply calling up federal or state military members to assist during times of natural emergency or civil unrest is not necessarily the same thing as implementing martial law. Look at the history of laws surrounding the use of military and law enforcement can also give some clues as to what American scholars and officials consider martial law today. While not specifically defined in the U.S. Constitution, many legal experts consider martial law to be the use of military personnel to dramatically assist or completely replace a nation's normal legal system in times of emergency. Whether any given use of the military rises to the level of martial law or is tied to exactly how much military support or action is used. Now, under total martial law, the normal American law enforcement and legal system is replaced by a stricter set of laws and punishments that is completely controlled by the military or executive branch of the government. The normal checks and balances systems built into the Constitution is suspended, like the suspension of the writ of habeas corpus, right? And we're going to look at what habeas corpus is in just a moment, in case you guys don't know, but it's the right to a speedy trial and all of that due process. Though debated in some legal discussions, martial law can also occur in stages without ever getting to total takeover by the U.S. military. Under the current U.S. law, the president, Congress, or local military commander may impose degrees of martial law under specific situations, right? So just kind of think about that. Who can declare martial law? Martial law can be declared by the U.S. president, the governor of a state, or in limited emergencies by local military commander. How and when it is declared by a governed series of laws. The first time martial law was declared was in the U.S., and it was in New Orleans by General Andrew Jackson during the War of 1812. Though the decision was unpopular with both the public and the other branches of government, Jackson was fined $1,000 by a judge for having a reporter who wrote an article critical of the measure arrested, though he later used his influence after leaving the presidency to convince Congress to pass a special law to get him his money back. That's fucking crazy. Also, I've heard a lot of comparisons from him to Trump as well. So, all told, martial law has been declared in the U.S. about 68 times, according to the Brennan Center for Justice, a nonpartisan law and policy institute. Most of those 68 cases of federal troops being deployed within the U.S. borders involved labor unrest, 29 times. And those 68 invocations of martial law have resulted in about 33, right, separate legal challenges to the declaration. Martial law was not officially declared in the U.S., was last officially declared in the U.S. in 1963. Martial law has twice been implemented nationally by a president during wartime. First by Abraham Lincoln in border states between the North and South during the Civil War, and then again by local military officials in Hawaii during World War II. This was later approved and expanded by Franklin Roosevelt's executive order to include the incarceration of Japanese Americans on the West Coast. Both martial law declarations were challenged in court. Were challenged in court, and both times the courts ended up ruling that at least a portion of those implementations were unconstitutional or too broadly applied. In fact, nearly every time active duty troops have been mobilized for law enforcement within the U.S., there's been a backlash throughout the nation, with debates for and against it lasting years. And several examples of martial law, such as when President George W. Bush placed foreign detainees in prison in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, which, gosh, dude, we will do more with this. I mean, like, this is going to have to be multiple parts because there's just so much. But, the torture that they did to these people, like they killed a bunch of them, like it's just crazy what they did, under Bush, right? And then remember, Bush did 9/11, right? Bush knocked down the towers. I don't know if you guys remember the rap song. And then, excuse me. He knocked down the towers. And then the Patriot Act, which Trump did the reauthorization of the Patriot Act, which is the most unconstitutional fucking act ever in 2020, So people that, Trump is very clearly got authoritarian tendencies, and I don't see how people can't see that. That's, that are diehard supporters, right? The reauthorization of the Patriot Act, his denial of the releasing of the Epstein files and fighting viciously to keep it from being released, and him being, implicated in those files quite a bit. Outside of U.S. court jurisdiction was later overruled by Supreme Court or a loophole in current law that gave President Donald Trump control of all D.C. National Guard troops deployed during the district during January 6th, 2021 insurrection at the Capitol, which was a major setup to his own base, guys. That's what's so disgusting about that one. And Congress and the courts have usually reached swiftly and strongly to any domestic military deployments. And, and think about that. This is what's fucked up about it. 284 federal agents all out there instigating all of this. Trump and all of his supporters. That's where people, the whole Groyper movement with Nick Fuentes. Sorry, motherfucker. That is a controlled opposition movement if I've ever seen one. That little worm was fucking part of the J6 stuff. But of course, he didn't go rush the Capitol. Neither did Alex Jones. None of those guys did. You notice? They were all cheering you on. You useful fucking idiots. That's what they were doing. They were cheering on the useful idiots, but none of them themselves went and did it because it was a set up. They work for the feds. Get it through your head. That's why they're so aligned with all of these political parties. And if you've seen, the recent rise to prominence of Nick Fuentes, and he was part of Young Republicans and all of that, if there's ever been a fucking, CI and out of all of them, it's that little pussy, which he acts super hard online, but you can guarantee he would not be running his lips, making his racial slurs or none of that shit in real life to nobody because they beat his little ass. The guy's like 5'8", literally, and he's a fucking 26-year-old kid. It's like, I don't see why people gravitate towards dumb fucks like that. It's like, it's crazy. And he claims to represent the disenfranchised young white male. And it's like, bitch, you're a rich as fuck. You come from a silver spoon. You went to Boston College. You don't represent our fucking people at all. You're like the last thing from a poor white person. He's part of the control system, trying to act like he's not. Same thing with Candace Owens and her fucking Jesuit Freemasonic bullshit. Like, it's so out. Charlie Kirk, all of it. And it's like people just can't seem to grasp that, just because they're influencers doesn't mean they're not controlled opposition, right? Like, think about it. How many regular people are raking in $150 million with with NGOs and fucking, all of this shit? They don't. They're not kicking it with the president. It's just crazy. People are dumb as fuck. Congress and the courts have usually reacted swiftly and strongly to any domestic military deployment. Since martial law sidesteps the constitutional division of powers and grants additional emergency powers to executive branch, such events do not usually sit well with the other branches of government. Two laws enacted as a result of previous actions include the Insurrection Act and Posse Comitatus Act. Right? Both are now widely used in emergency situations, even though their constitutionality is still often called into question more than 100 years after they were enacted, right? And Posse Comitatus, keeps the military from being on our soil, right? Hence what's happening right now, right? And they're doing it through the insurrection, right? So it's just crazy, Go back here. Where are we at here? Right, okay, so The indication that the government is preparing to enforce martial law style rules, even if the terminology isn't used, government messaging or legislation hinting at extreme scenarios, executive orders or legislation actions granting broad emergency powers, public discourse that frames civil unrest, disasters, or threats as requiring extraordinary measures, right? And this is what we're seeing being used now, right? Changes in infrastructure supporting control, surveillance, increased funding or deployment of systems that allow rapid mobilization of forces, control of communications, or lockdown of areas, the activation of continuity of government plans, the U.S. continuity of government readiness condition, which suggests the government is shifting into emergency mode readiness. COGCON. And, it says that the officials most often impose martial law when civilian authority over an area stops functioning, right? So that's why he's using, and notice his wording and his messaging. It's being based on basically that premise. It's like, Chicago police aren't able to stop the chaos, right? LA police aren't able. It's like acting like the police are and same thing with Cincinnati, right? Like that's why they fired our chief of police, right? She's been placed on leave because she can't fight the crime. It's all political, It's because they know she wasn't going to allow that shit to happen here, right? And now they've got her out of the way, right? And she had already implemented, like I said, SWAT, curfews, all of this shit. And it was to try to keep the feds out of our backyard, and now they're putting her on leave because they want her out of the way to be able to do that, right? It's heavily politicized what they're doing, right? And it's basically to take over all these major cities and populations, but you're seeing it, and that's if they use that precedence of like, hey, well, this police department, its functionality isn't working, right? Like they can't stop the crime, the murder rates are inflated, like they did with DC first. DC was the first place they did all that, and now they're like, DC, streets are so safe and everybody's so happy, Now we're gonna do it everywhere. The visible signs of logistical preparation, extra rationing announcements, stockpiling of supplies, hidden warehouses, transport of supplies in large volumes under secrecy, large-scale exercises or movements that mimic national emergencies. Drills don't always mean actual activation. The abrupt disruption of normal communication channels or media, sudden directives to stay tuned to official sources, blackouts, heavy jamming, censorship or prioritization of military broadcast over civilian ones. And this is what I was talking about with, the federal ICE agent, which I'll show you. I might as well, show the letter, but how he was talking about that's what would happen. There would be like an emergency, the presidential alert, which he put in October of 2017, Trump did, right, would basically, presidential broadcast, he would take over all of the broadcasting, and then it would be like, stay in your homes, everything's fine, basically, and all the banks will be down, ATMs would be down, EBT, all electronic money would be down. And it would start with a stock market crash on a Friday, right? And they'll do it on a Friday because they want the weekend, right? For the news cycles and for government to be out of office, all of it. It's like, if you do it on a Friday, you can punch the people right in the face before they even know what the fuck is happening. By the time Monday comes, you've already got your foot on their throat, right? So on a Friday, late on a Friday after the workday, by the way, right? So like Friday, 5, 6 p.m., right? Somewhere in there, Friday evening, there'll be a crash type shit, right? And there was even an X-Files episode that talked about all of this as well, right? It was like they did like this, you know, they came back to the X-Files like 10 years later and did like 6 episodes. It was one of those. Very controversial episode. But, you know, on a Friday after the work day, stock market crashed and everybody who wakes up the next day can't get access to anything electronic, right? Coinciding with then the grids go down, internet down, emergency alert system is dispatched telling everybody to stay calm, stay in their homes, that there's been a cyber attack, that it's all under control, right? But it's really the government knocking it all down. And then they've already got all the federal agents, you know, in all of the major cities, right? And they already have a list of the preppers and the dissidents, and then they go out with the hit teams, they black bag them, they go and arrest and kill, you know, all the influencers and all the people that they, you know, consider to be violent extremists and political dissidents, right? So some are set for, you know, to be killed, others would be set to be arrested. And they've already, at this point, there would be the cue given to gas all the illegal aliens, right? They'd all be basically wiped out if they haven't been sent out of the country yet, because they have no rights, right? Executed, essentially, to make room for all of the, you know, the U.S. citizens that will then be put into the prisons and all of this. You know, and be bad news bears for all of us. You know, there'd be nobody in the media would basically, you know, opposition media would be able to say what's going on. No internet, no, you know, no power. You know, and then, you know, all of them being arrested, right, if they're deemed a threat. So this would, you know, and then martial law would be in place, and they've already got the feds, they've already got the National Guard. It's already there. It's already set up, right, like waiting on us, you know. And that's what I believe, you know. And it's like, and if they know that there's some, you know, and at this time would be a prime time for enemies to attack, you know, so there could be an actual war that would then ensue, you know, or some sort of false flag scenario of civil war one way or the other, you know, then, you know, this would become a world crisis because of the civil war or whatever, right? Or if we're decimated by another country, then you'd have UN troops, right? Which would then essentially be brought in to restore order. And we already have tens of thousands of UN vehicles stashed all over the United States and cities and shit. So, I mean, just think about it. It's like, it's all there, you know, for the taking, you know. So the abrupt disruption of normal communication channels or media, sudden directives to stay tuned to official sources, blackouts, heavy jamming, censorship, prioritization of military broadcast over civilian ones, premises of a breakdown of civil authority. The legal basis for enforcing martial law type measures typically involves a situation where civilian authority has stopped functioning. In short, signs of large-scale unrest, massive infrastructure failure, or an attack might precede or trigger these measures, like I just said. Why this matters? When you believe in systemic control and suppression of knowledge, these kind of indicators can signal when things are shifting from routine politics into systemic reset mode. So there you go. Indicators of impending nuclear war or catastrophic disaster. Government agency alerts or changes in readiness levels. If you hear about national readiness levels being raised, for example, it's like the DEFCON scale from 5 or to lower numbers as a general sign of military alert. Federal agencies like FEMA, CDC, issuing unexpected detailed instructions about radiation, fallout, or mass evacs. Sudden large-scale evacuation orders or shelter-in-place instructions. Evacuation of large populations, especially in seemingly stable regions, might hint at larger disaster scenarios. Official directives like get inside, stay tuned for radiation emergencies. Visible changes to civilian infrastructure, preparation, activation of fallout shelters, stockpiling of potassium iodide or other radiation, which they've already done this stockpiling, right? They've already went and disarmed all of the state armories and shit like that. They've stockpiled all of the ammunition. This has already happened. So they're already that far ahead, just to let you know. Reports of government training and exercises simulating nuclear detonation or catastrophic crisis. While not a guarantee, it may signal a readiness posture. Disruption of preparation of communication command network systems meant to operate during EMP or nuclear conflict being activated or tested. Reports of alternate command centers, relocation of key government officials, or continuity of government being visibly activated. And warnings of tension or international relations aligning with domestic readiness. Heightened global tensions paired with domestic readiness measures can be an indicator of systemic preparation for large-scale conflicts and sudden changes in civil supply chain, food, water, message urging personal preparedness. Even if the government's messaging is generic, be prepared. When combined with other signs, it can reinforce that something bigger is being anticipated. So just kind of the Department of Justice FY 2026 contingency plan. These are official documents and plans. The scope covers Department of Justice operations during a lapse of appropriations, detailing essential functions and personnel requirements. The key highlights are mission essential functions, identification of critical functions that must continue during funding gaps, right? Like, think about this, guys. This is legit shit. Personal designations of personnel necessary to perform MEFs, resource allocation plans for allocating resources to support essential operations, guidance for continuation of operations during a lapse in appropriations. Purpose provides guidance for federal agencies on maintaining essential functions during lapses in appropriations. Key components: essential activities, identification of activities necessary for national security and continuity of government, resource management, guidelines for managing resources to support essential activities, and communication protocols, establishment for communication methods to coordinate efforts during funding gaps. And this is my official document here, which I have some of them over here. And this is the National Security Presidential Directive, right, for the continuity. This directive establishes a comprehensive national policy on the continuity of federal government structures and operations of a single national continuity coordinator responsible for coordinating development and implementation of federal continuity policies. This policy establishes the national essential functions and prescribes continuity requirements for all executive departments and agencies. In this directive, the category refers to the categories of executive departments, catastrophic emergencies, continuity of government, and continuity of operations. And you can see it's ensure the continued functioning of our form of government under the Constitution. And see, and here's the thing too, and this is what that federal ICE agent said in that letter. Let's see if I can pull this up somewhere. Still have it. I might somewhere. but he talks about, you know, that they were told that the federal government had to survive basically at all cost, right? And that's why they were doing these practices and exercises and all of that. I've got a few of these documents here. I'm trying to look for something in particular. Right, and just to kind of show you too, this is the Deagle, which they've taken it down now, but you can still find it. These are the population projections for 2025 Deagle forecast by country. Wow. Interesting. So you can see population change for the United States of America. And we're at 316 million here. Minus 68%. And we were at, they did have the old projections, and it was a 90% population decrease, so at least it's improved, but it's 68.5% now, decrease in population. And the number one, look, I want you to look at the countries that have the largest population decrease, and then think about like US NATO allies. Okay, just saying. Number one is the UK. Right, 77.1, followed by Ireland, 72.4, the United States of America, 68.5, Puerto Rico, 68, Germany, Luxembourg, Israel, Libya, Iceland, France, Spain, Bahrain, Cyprus, Australia, Angola, Switzerland, Denmark, Belgium, Austria, Ukraine, Italy, Malta, Syria, Canada, Sweden, Estonia, Greece, Portugal, New Zealand, Norway, South Korea, Moldova, Lithuania, St. Lucia, Barbados, Taiwan, Latvia, Japan, Belarus, Serbia, New Caledonia, Bahamas, Micronesia, Uruguay, United Arab Emirates, Trinidad and Tobago, El Salvador, Bulgaria, Qatar, Poland, Slovenia, Croatia, Tanzania, Equatorial Guinea, Haiti, Turkey, Kuwait, Lesotho, Burkina Faso, North Macedonia, Singapore, Montenegro, Burundi, Eswatini, Czechia, Slovakia, Argentina, Aruba, Albania, Bosnia, Saudi Arabia, South Africa, Armenia. It goes on and on, but I mean, you know, notice what all these countries, you know, the top countries are. These are, you know, US, NATO countries, right? They have the top ones: UK, Ireland, US, Puerto Rico, Germany, Israel, France, Spain. I mean, think about these countries, guys. So, and make sure I got the right one here. And then we're going to go into the destroyer. Oops. This isn't what I want. And you guys remember the Jade Helm operation? And this was, you know, on basically, you know, the southwest Jade Helm, which, the exercises, which were Army Special Operations Command conducting Jade Helm 15 to train U.S. Special Ops forces to respond to an international crisis. They'll train together during this 8-week period to further strengthen their working relationship and future deployments. They will also use this opportunity to further develop tactics, techniques, and procedures for emerging concepts of SOF warfare. And this was 7 states: Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, Utah, Mississippi, Louisiana, and Florida. All right, so we'll kind of wrap this one up with this. Now, I wanted to read this on the last one. Oops. This card. Okay, I'm gonna have to pull up a new one, I think. All right, hold on, guys. 1 second. Let me pull up this file. Right here. All right. One second here. And remember the 3i Atlas and all of that at the beginning. Okay. And this isn't that long, so here we go. And this is from the Colburn Bible. This is, like I said, written on brass. This is pre-Diluvian. This is the Egyptian perspective of the book of Exodus and all of that. All right, so here we go. Chapter 3, The Destroyer. From the Great Scroll. Men forget the days of the destroyer. Only the wise know where it went and that it will return in its appointed hour. It raged from the heavens, across the heavens in the days of wrath, and this was its likeness. It was a billowing cloud of smoke, enwrapped in a ruddy glow, not distinguishable in joint or limb. Its mouth was an abyss from which flame and smoke and hot cinders came. When ages pass, certain laws operate upon the stars and the heavens. Their ways change. Their movement and restlessness. They are no longer constant, and a great light appears redly in the skies. When blood drops upon the earth, the destroyer will appear, and mountains will open up and belch forth fire and ashes. Trees will be destroyed, and all living things engulfed. Waters will be swallowed up by the land, and seas will boil. The heavens will burn brightly and redly. There will be a copper hue over the face of the land, followed by a day of darkness. A new moon will appear and break up and fall. The people will scatter in madness. They will hear the trumpet and battle cry of the destroyer, and will seek refuge in the den in the earth. Terror will eat away their hearts, and their courage will flow from them like water from a broken pitcher. They will be eaten up in the flames of wrath and consumed by the breath of the destroyer. Thus in the days of heavenly wrath which have gone, and thus it will be in the days of doom when it comes again. The times of its coming and going are known unto the wise. These are the signs of the times which shall precede the destroyer's return. And it's telling you about basically, what the world will be like when it's ready to return. Okay? 110 generations shall pass into the west, and nations will rise and fall. Men will fly in the air as birds and swim in the sea as fishes. Men will talk peace one with another. Hypocrisy and deceit shall have their day. So once again, just like, we have the Bible, which refers to peace and security, or safety and security before sudden destruction, they'll be talking peace, but deceit shall have its day. Women will be as men, and men as women. Passion will be a plaything of man. A nation of soothsayers shall rise and fall, and their tongue shall be the speech learned. A nation of lawgivers shall rule the earth and pass away into nothingness. One worship will pass into the four quarters of the earth, talking peace and bringing war. A nation of the seas will be greater than any other. And I think that is the United States, right? Because we're surrounded by the three major oceans, right? We had the world's largest navy. I think China just passed us, but the world's largest navy, we would be the nation of the seas, for sure. And if men are as women and women are as men, right? Passion is definitely, people are promiscuous as hell now. It's a plaything. So we talk peace, but bring war. It's just all of it. We fly in the air like birds. We swim in the sea like fishes. I mean, this is just, it's pretty clear. In a nation of soothsayers. And I want you to think about, hate to say it, but, think about Christianity and all of this and all of the prominent, prophets and shit of today. They are most definitely false prophets if I've ever seen one. That's what they do. They all prophesy and, say this is from God and that is from God, and they're all political. It's just, it's horseshit is what it is. A nation of the seas will be greater than any other, but it will be as an apple rotten at the core and will not. Rotten at the core, like an apple, like the Big Apple, New York, right? It's crazy. It's like, how could they know these things back then? This is old, very old. A nation of traitors will destroy men with wonders, and it shall have its day. And, we're like, Babylon, we're the merchants of the earth, right? Then shall the high strive with the low, the north with the south, the east with the west, and the light with the darkness. Men shall be divided by their races, and the children will be born as strangers among them. Brother shall strive with brother, and husband with wife. Fathers will no longer instruct their sons. Their sons will be wayward. Women will become the common property of men, and will no longer be held in regard and respect. Then men will be ill at ease in their hearts. They will seek they know not what, and uncertainty and doubt will trouble them. They will possess great riches, but be poor in spirit. Then will the heavens tremble, and the earth move. Men will quake in fear, while terror walks with them. The heralds of doom will appear. And I believe the heralds of doom are probably angels or extraterrestrials of some sort. It's just my opinion of that. They will come softly as thieves to the tomb. As thieves to the tombs. Men will know them for what they are. Men will not know them for what they are. Men will be deceived. The hour of the destroyer is at hand. In those days, men will have the great book before them. Wisdom will be revealed. The few will be gathered for the stand. It is the hour of trial. The dauntless ones will survive. The stout-hearted will not go down to destruction. Great God of all ages, alike to all, who sets the trials of man, be merciful to our children in the days of doom. Man must suffer to be great, but hasten not progress unduly. In the great winnowing, be not too harsh on the lesser ones among men. The son of a thief has become your scribe. Think about that. You know, there will be people that do survive this, you know, but they're going to be strong of heart. You know, they're going to be a different breed from the rest. You know, they won't be like the common person. It's going to be a different type of person that makes it through this, you know. And remember, it says that these heralds of doom, you know, and there's, in the coming days of wrath, you think of like Sodom and Gomorrah, right? That was the time of wrath, right? Sodom and Gomorrah and all of this. And then now you have the days of doom, which is Judgment Day, right? And that's what they're referring to. And they're telling you about this age, this time, this great nation, how people will be. Men will be like women. Women will be like men, you know. And I can't think of a time where it's more like that. And then even the greatest nation, which is the U.S., won't survive it. O sentinels of the universe, who watch for the destroyer, how long will your coming vigil last? O mortal men, who wait without understanding, where will you hide yourselves in the dread days of doom? When the heavens shall be torn apart and the skies rent in twain, and the days when children will turn gray-headed. This is the thing which will be seen. This is the terror your eyes will behold. This is the form of destruction that will rush upon you. There will be the great body of fire, the glowing head with many mouths and eyes ever changing. Terrible teeth will be seen in formless mouths, and a fearful dark belly will glow redly from fires inside. Even the most stout-hearted man will tremble and his bowels be loosened. For this is not a thing understandable to men. It will be a vast sky-spanning form enwrapping the earth, burning with many hues within wide open mouths. These will descend to sweep across the face of the land, engulfing all in the yawning jaws. The greatest warriors will charge against it in vain. The fangs will fall out, and lo, they are terror-inspiring things of cold, hardened water. Great boulders will be hurled down upon men, crushing them into red powder. As the great salt waters rise up in its train, and roaring torrents pour towards the land, even the heroes among mortal men will be overcome with madness. As moths fly swiftly to their doom in the burning flame, so will these men rush to their own destruction. The flames going before will devour all the works of men. The waters following will sweep away whatever remains. The dew of death will fall softly as gray carpet over the cleared land. Men will cry out in their madness, "Oh, whatever being there is, save us from this tall form of terror. Save us from this gray dew of death." The doom shape called the Destroyer in Egypt was seen in all lands. Whereabouts its color, it was bright and fiery, in appearance changing and unstable. It twisted about itself like a coil, like water bubbling into a pool from an underground supply. And all men agree it was a most fearsome sight. It was not a great comet or a loosened star, being more like a fiery body of flame. Its movements on high were slow. Below it swirled in the manner of smoke, and it remained close to the sun, whose face it hid. So that lets you know right there that it comes from behind the sun. Just saying. We're looking at the 3-eye atlas, the interstellar object, right? It's this red fucking glowing comet-like thing. You know, and I'm not saying it is the Destroyer, you know, by any means. I don't know. You know, this could be Apophis, it could be 3-eye, it could be something we haven't even seen or heard of yet. So I don't know what it is. But I'm just throwing it out there, you know. Because I do believe we will see this in our lifetimes. That's, you know. For those of you that have known or watched me for any period of time, that's what made me start this entire channel. I knew nothing. I never read the Bible. I had never knew anything about any of this stuff. And then I had a dream of a giant red striped planet. And the entire sky was blood red. I was in this building. I was in a window, like this square window. I was looking out of it, and I was turning around, telling a bunch of people behind me, like, what was happening, you know. And this was before I was even doing, you know, content or anything like that. But I was, like, telling people what was happening, what was going on. And all of a sudden, I turned around, and everybody had, you know, the sky turned blood red. And when I turned around to tell everybody, they had all turned, their eyes had turned solid black, like they were demonic. They were like demons. And I had my children with me, and I got down from the thing I was standing on, and I mean, I was pretty scared, you know, at the sight. And they were all basically, some of them were like hysterically crying, and others of them were like foaming at the mouth with like anger and I could tell they wanted to murder me. But as I walked through them, they just parted, you know, like the Red Sea. It was like they couldn't touch me, and I knew why they couldn't touch me, because I was like divinely protected. And I walked out of the room with my children, and I walked under this giant arch. And next thing you know, I heard the words, "Everything that can be shaken will be shaken." and things got really weird. I looked around and cars were just crashing into each other. They were running off the road, and just people were shooting themselves and each other and jumping off of buildings. Lots of people were taking themselves out and taking other people out. And I could look on the horizon and I seen what looked like a bunch of fireballs raining down, like on the far horizon. And then as I scanned over, I seen what looked like a giant moon that had hit the earth, and it was broken into pieces. Like it had already hit, and it was broken into pieces. Like I could see pieces of the earth coming up into space from where it had been hit by it, and then the object was still there and like broken into like 4 pieces, but you could still see its form. And then I seen this giant like fireball off in the distance, and like I just blinked, and next thing you know, it had disappeared. And I'm like, where the fuck did it go? And all of a sudden, the earth just started shaking like crazy, like nothing, like somebody was picking the damn thing up and just shaking it as hard as they could. And every building just crumbled like sand. Like it was nothing. And large parts of the earth were opening up and people were falling into it. Me and my children weren't moving though. We were like just standing there, just solid, not moving. And then I looked up to the sky, and that fireball that I seen off in the distance all of a sudden came from up underneath the earth. So like from underneath us, like it come from underneath out of nowhere, and it just covered the entire sky, and it was a giant red striped planet. Just looked like Jupiter is what it looked like. Looked just like Jupiter. And it was huge. I mean, it covered the whole sky. You couldn't see nothing but this fucking thing. And then I heard the words, "Trust God, John." That's what it said. "Trust God, John." And then like I woke up, and I was no longer in my bed, but I was in the middle of my hallway standing up. Like, I don't know how the hell I got there or anything. And just this emotion, just like I just melted like a puddle of water. Like I just fell to the ground, and like the only words that could come out of my mouth, like I wanted to ask questions, but I couldn't articulate a question even. The only word that could come out of my mouth was "thank you." And I had like just tears just rolling down my face. It was crazy. And it was so powerful. It just like, like it imprinted on me. That's the only way I can describe it. And then after that, it just changed me. I just wanted to learn all about this, and I just started seeking, continuously. Short while after that, I went viral the first time and started building subscribers on YouTube and then other places and shit like that. So, but yeah. Where am I at? The earth was troubled and shook. The hills and mountains moved and rocked. The dark smoke-filled bowed over earth, and a great howl came to the ears of men, borne to them upon the wings of the wind. It was the cry of the dark Lord, the master of dread. Thick clouds of fiery smoke passed before him, and there was an awful hail of hot stones and coals of fire. The doom-shaped thundered sharply in the heavens and shot out bright lightnings. The channels of water were turned back unto themselves when the land tilted, and great trees were tossed about and snapped like twigs. Then a voice like 10,000 trumpets was heard over the wilderness, and before its burning breath the flames parted. The whole of the land moved and mountains melted. The sky itself roared like 10,000 lions in agony, and bright arrows of blood sped back and forth across its face. Earth swelled up like bread upon the hearth. This was the aspect of the doom shape called the Destroyer. It appeared in days long gone by, in olden times. It thus described in the old records, few of which remain. It is said that when it appears in the heavens above, earth splits open from the heat, like a nut roasted before the fire. Then flames shoot up through the surface and leap about the fiery fiends upon black blood. The moisture inside the land is all dried up. The pastures and cultivated places are consumed in flames, and they and all trees become white ashes. The doom shape is like a circling ball of flame, which scatters small fiery offspring in its train. It covers about a fifth part of the sky and sends writhing snake-like fingers down to the earth. Before it, the sky appears frightened, and it breaks up and scatters away. Midday is no brighter than night. It spawns a host of terrible things. These are its appointed time. These are things said of the Destroyer in the old records. Read them with a solemn heart, knowing that the doom shape has its appointed time and will return. It would be foolish to let them go unheeded. Now men say, such things are not destined for our days. May the great God above grant that this be so. But come, the day surely will. And in accordance with his nature, man will be unprepared. I mean, and then it goes on to the dark days, which are after the Destroyer. We won't read that, but yeah. Just to give you an idea, On the next one, where's it at here? The next one we're going to do, I will do, get more into, Trump and the Antichrist and, Israel and all of that. We will dive deeper into all of that. So, I think I'm going to wrap it up for tonight and leave it there. I think that's a good place to stop. So I do appreciate each and every one of you guys for watching me. I do hope you enjoyed the stream, the broadcast. If you enjoy my work, you enjoy what I do, please make sure to hit thumbs up. That's a good way to, help with the algorithms. Comment. That's also another good way. And share the link. Share it to your social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever. You can follow me on all those platforms as well. Instagram and Facebook at Best Damn Podcast, Twitter and TikTok at The Real Best Damn, BitChute, Rumble, Best Damn Podcast, and YouTube is Best Damn Podcast Official and Best Damn Podcast. So all the links are in the description. And keep in mind, I'm completely viewer powered. They demonetize me on every platform because of the stuff I talk about. So your support is greatly appreciated. You can donate paypal.me/thebestdampodcast, cash.app, $, Best Damn Podcast, Facebook Messenger Pay at facebook.com, John Keane Best Damn Podcast, and join me over on Patreon, and it's patreon.com, Best Damn Podcast Official, and get access to the uncensored and all of that, which I'll be doing. We're going to be doing weekly uncensored videos on there again, just, everything. I'm trying to do a lot more content. So I love you guys. And thank you so much for watching. Remember, Jesus is the truth and the way and the life. God bless.